A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com.
What if the most valuable skill in 2026 isn't fitting in, but strategically standing apart? I think we are reaching a point where the market is finally, mercifully, rewarding divergence again. We're about to give you 10 ways to weaponize your weirdness.
It's a fascinating shift, Herman. As AI homogenization accelerates, contrarian thinking is becoming a scarce, high-value asset. When everyone has access to the same perfect median answer, the person who intentionally looks the other way is the only one finding new gold. Think about the dead internet theory. The idea that most of the web is already bot-generated filler. In that world, a single human glitch or a truly weird take is the only thing that proves there's a soul behind the screen.
Oh wait, I'm not supposed to say that word. You caught me. Today's prompt from Daniel is about 10 creative and underexplored ideas for contrarians, eccentrics, and those who see the world through a different lens. And honestly, Corn Poppleberry, this feels like it was written specifically for your brand of academic intensity and my brand of, well, being a sloth who likes to poke things with a stick.
I'll take academic intensity as a compliment. And for the record, I'm Corn Poppleberry, and we are diving deep today. Fun fact. Google Gemini 3 Flash is actually writing our script today, which is fitting because we're talking about how to stay ahead of the very tools that are currently trying to predict our next sentence. It's like a chess grandmaster practicing against an AI to learn how to make the one move the AI would never consider.
It's a bit meta, isn't it? The AI is helping us explain how to be less like AI. But let's skip the preamble. Most productivity and creativity advice is optimized for the median user, which just creates massive blind spots for edge cases. If you're a non-conformist, those blind spots are where you live. If you follow a top 10 habits of successful people list, you're just installing the same operating system as everyone else. You're competing on a crowded field.
That's the core of the problem. Modern systems are built for average, but systems designed for outliers can capture value that mainstream approaches miss entirely. When we say contrarian, we don't just mean people who like to argue for the sake of it. We mean people who see different variables. It's the difference between being a rebel without a cause and being a specialist in the ignored.
Right, it's not about being a jerk at a dinner party, it's about finding an edge. So, what makes an idea underexplored in this space? Why aren't more people doing this if it's so valuable?
It usually involves high friction, long time horizons, or social discomfort. Things that an algorithm wouldn't suggest because they don't look efficient on a spreadsheet. If an AI is looking for the shortest path between A and B, the contrarian is looking for the most interesting path, even if it's twice as long. Efficiency is the enemy of discovery.
Perfect. Let's get into the meat. Idea number 1, the opposite infrastructure play. This is about building tools for the inverse of what everyone else is building. If every SaaS product in 2026 is trying to optimize for velocity and seamlessness, you should build for intentional friction.
I love this because it challenges the very foundation of modern software design. Think about a project management tool. Right now, they all want you to move tickets as fast as possible. But what if you built a tool that forced reflection periods? You try to move a task to done, and the software says, no. Sit with this for 24 hours. Write 3 sentences about what you learned before I let you archive this.
I can hear the Silicon Valley hustle culture screaming from here. But my throughput, my velocity. But seriously, that intentional friction creates a better result. It prevents that mindless pecked by ducks feeling where you're busy but not productive. How would that work for something like social media, though?
Imagine a slow social network. You can only post once a week. But that post has to be at least 500 words, and you have to cite your sources. The infrastructure is designed to stop the knee-jerk reaction. It's the anti-Twitter. It would have a tiny user base compared to TikTok, but the quality of the discourse would be astronomical. The value isn't in the number of users, it's in the depth of the connection.
But wouldn't the lack of dopamine hits kill the platform before it even starts? If we aren't getting that constant notification buzz, do people even stay?
That's the beauty of the contrarian play. You aren't building for the dopamine addicts. You're building for the people who are terrified of their own attention spans. It's the deep work, equivalent of a campfire. You don't go to a campfire to get efficient warmth. You go for the specific quality of the light and the pace of the conversation. The friction is the feature.
It's about building a moat through cognitive demand. If your tool makes people think more deeply, the output becomes higher quality than the commoditized AI-generated fluff. We saw this with the rise of Calm Company, philosophies like Basecamps. They didn't just build a better chat tool, they built an infrastructure that discouraged the always-on anxiety of their competitors.
It's a slow food movement for bytes and bits. If everyone is selling a jet engine, sell a comfortable chair and a good book.
Let's move to idea number 2, the temporal mismatch strategy. This one is for the people who are tired of the quarterly earnings or weekly sprint mindset.
This is where you operate on a radically different time horizon. If the world is optimizing for 90-day cycles, you build for 10-year cycles, or even 50. This is the Lindy effect in action. The idea that the longer something has survived, the longer it is likely to survive in the future.
That sounds great in theory, Corn, but how does a contrarian actually apply that to a career or a product without starving to death in year 3? If I'm building for 2050, how do I pay rent in 2026?
It changes the nature of what you build. In 2026, with GitHub Copilot X generating code for 73% of routine tasks, the quick build is dead. It's commoditized. But if you are building a legacy protocol, something designed to be functional and relevant in 50 years, you choose different languages, different hardware, and a different business model. You move away from subscriptions and toward ownership. You sell a license that lasts a lifetime, not a month.
It's the Patek Philippe approach to software. You don't ever actually own a database, you just look after it for the next generation. It applies to career planning too. Instead of the 4-year itch where you hop jobs to bump your salary, what if you committed to a single problem for a decade? The compounding knowledge you gain after year 7 is a competitive advantage that no job hopper can ever touch.
Precisely. Well, not precisely, but you're on the right track. Think about the Long Now Foundation. They are building a clock designed to tick for 10,000 years. That's a temporal mismatch. It forces them to think about materials and engineering in a way that a smartwatch company never would. When you change the timeline, the impossible problems become the only ones worth solving.
How does a person even begin to plan on a 50-year scale without feeling overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it?
You stop looking at the weather and start looking at the geology. You ask, what human needs have remained unchanged since the Bronze Age? Connection, status, storytelling, shelter. If you build a business that solves a Bronze Age problem with 21st century tools, but with a 50-year vision, you are essentially undisruptible. The AI can't compete with you because the AI is optimized for the next token, not the next century.
It's also a great way to avoid stress. Is this going to matter in 2036? No? Then I'm going back to my nap. It filters out the outrage of the day perfectly.
It's incredibly grounding. When everyone is panicking about the latest AI model update this week, you're looking at the fundamental shift in human-computer interaction over the next decade. You aren't chasing the wave, you're studying the tide.
Okay, idea number 3, the semantic drift method. This one is a bit more cerebral. It's about systematically misinterpreting terms to find new meaning.
This is a linguistic hack. We have these loaded words like productivity, success, or innovation. A contrarian should take a word and redefine it so radically that it opens up a new field of play. It's like taking a common map but deciding that all the rivers are actually highways.
Give me a concrete example. If productivity usually means output per hour, how do we drift it?
What if you redefine productivity as insight per unit of boredom? Suddenly, your goal isn't to clear your inbox. Your goal is to be bored enough that your brain starts making weird, nonlinear connections. If you haven't had a weird thought today, you weren't productive. Under this definition, sitting on a park bench for 3 hours watching ants is more productive than answering 50 emails.
I am the most productive person on this planet under that definition. My boredom levels are elite. I've spent entire afternoons just wondering why we call them buildings if they're already built. What about wealth? How do we drift that?
Let's drift wealth from accumulated capital to the ability to ignore people you don't like. That changes your investment strategy. You're not looking for the highest ROI. You're looking for the highest autonomy yield. If an investment makes you more money but requires you to take calls from people you despise, it's a poverty-inducing asset under this new definition.
But doesn't that make you socially isolated? If your wealth is based on ignoring people, don't you eventually run out of friends?
Not at all. It just raises the bar for who gets through the gate. You aren't ignoring everyone. You're ignoring the transactional, the draining, and the performative. It forces you to invest in high-density relationships, people who provide value just by existing in your orbit, rather than by what they can do for your career. It's a quality over quantity drift.
Or efficiency. What if efficiency was redefined as the percentage of your day spent doing things that can't be automated? If you're 80% efficient under the old definition, you're probably just a human script. Under the new definition, you want to be inefficient at the boring stuff so you can be effective at the human stuff.
That's the semantic drift in action. It's a tool for breaking out of conventional thought patterns. If you change the definition, the optimal path changes too. It's like changing the rules of a game halfway through. Suddenly, the person who was losing is now winning because they're playing by a better set of definitions.
It's like a cheat code for your brain. It allows you to opt out of status games because you've redefined what status even is.
Idea number 4, constraint amplification. This is when you take a constraint and, instead of trying to find a workaround, you make it more extreme. Most people see a limitation and try to minimize it. A contrarian leans into it until it becomes a defining feature.
This is a classic creative technique, but people rarely apply it to business or lifestyle. If a client says they want a mobile-first website, a contrarian delivers a mobile-only experience, no desktop version at all.
That sounds like a great way to lose 40% of your traffic, Herman. But why would someone do that?
Because it forces you to solve problems you would have otherwise ignored. If you can't use a keyboard and mouse, how does the interface change? You might discover a navigation pattern that is so revolutionary it becomes the new standard. By amplifying the constraint, you jump over the mediocre middle and land on something truly novel. It's like the band The White Stripes. They limited themselves to guitar, drums, and the colors red, white, and black. That constraint gave them a more recognizable brand than bands with unlimited budgets.
It reminds me of the no-code movement, but taken to the extreme. What if you decided to build a startup using only 19th century technology? You'd end up with a high-end bespoke stationery company or a luxury furniture brand that uses zero electricity. The constraint creates the luxury.
It's like that year of the hermit idea Daniel mentioned in his notes. Instead of just spending more time alone, you go full hermit. No internet, no phone, just a cabin and a typewriter for 3 months. The creative output from that extreme constraint will be fundamentally different from someone just trying to focus in a coffee shop.
But how do you prevent that from becoming just a gimmick? How do you distinguish between a productive constraint and just being difficult for the sake of it?
The difference is intentional utility. A gimmick is something you do for the gram. A productive constraint is something that actually results in a better, or at least a more distinct, output. If your mobile-only site is just a broken version of a normal site, it's a gimmick. If it uses haptic feedback and gyroscope sensors to create a brand new way of reading news that works better than scrolling, it's an innovation born from constraint.
It's about agentic living. You are choosing the constraints rather than letting them happen to you. In 2026, we are surrounded by soft constraints, the algorithm gently nudging us toward the same movies, the same food, the same opinions. Constraint amplification is about slamming the door and choosing a hard, weird boundary that forces a new type of excellence. If you say, I will only use software I build myself, you'll be incredibly limited, but you'll understand your tools better than anyone else on Earth.
I will only eat food that I have personally met. That's a constraint. Probably a bit too much for me, though. I don't want to be friends with my lunch. It makes the breakup too hard.
Let's hit idea number 5, the second-order sabotage approach. This is about intentionally optimizing for second-order effects, while others are obsessed with the first order.
This is a sophisticated play. Explain the difference for those who weren't paying attention in economics class.
First-order thinking is, I want more engagement on my app. Second-order thinking is, if I get more engagement through rage bait, my users will become burnt out, resentful, and eventually abandon the platform in 6 months.
So the sabotage is that you intentionally sabotage the first order metric to protect the second order one?
You build for healthy disengagement. You design your app to kick the user off after 15 minutes. You literally build a close me button that works better than the scroll more button. On paper, your engagement stats look terrible. Investors who only look at first-order metrics will hate you. They'll think you're failing.
But wouldn't an investor just pull the plug? How do you pitch, I'm intentionally making my product less addictive, to a VC?
You don't pitch to those VCs. You pitch to the LTV maximalists, the people who understand that a user who stays for 10 years because they trust you is worth 100 users who stay for 10 days because they're hooked. You're trading daily active users for decade-long trust. It's an arbitrage on human burnout. In a world where every app is trying to steal your time, the one app that gives it back to you becomes the most prestigious thing on your home screen.
But the second order effect is that your user retention over 5 years is a vertical line because people actually trust you. You've sabotaged the short-term metric to capture the long-term value. It's like a restaurant that tells you, don't order the steak today. It's not up to our standards. They lose the $20 profit today, but they gain a customer for life.
It's a business model built on not being a vampire, which, in 2026, is a pretty contrarian position. Most companies are still trying to figure out how to strap a VR headset to your face while you sleep, so they can show you ads in your dreams.
It's the counterculture of sincerity. By refusing to play the attention economy game, you signal to a very specific, high-value group of people that you are playing a different game entirely. You're not a commodity, you're a partner. That's a moat that no AI can replicate because AI is, by definition, an engagement, maximizing machine. It can't choose to be less effective for the sake of a human relationship.
Precisely. Okay, we're halfway through. Those were the tactical ones. But now I want to talk about how the weird thinkers can actually survive the next few years. Because, let's be honest, being a contrarian is exhausting. You're constantly swimming against the current.
It is. You get tired of being the, well, actually guy, but that's why these frameworks matter. They aren't just ideas, they are survival strategies. Let's talk about idea number 6, the error amplification technique. This one is a bit counterintuitive.
Double down on your mistakes. Sounds like my 2020s. Explain yourself, Korn.
It's about pattern recognition in your own failures. If you consistently miss deadlines because you get distracted by irrelevant side research, most people and most HR departments would say, get better at time management. They want to round off your edges. A contrarian says, my brain is clearly optimized for exploratory research, not execution. The errors is trying to be a project manager.
So instead of trying to fix the bug, you turn it into a feature?
You build a business model around exploratory consulting with no fixed deliverables. You tell clients, I will go down rabbit holes for you for $20,000 a month, and I will give you whatever I find. I won't give you a slide deck, and I won't meet your Tuesday deadline, but I will give you the insight that saves your company. You find the one person who values your glitch more than your compliance.
Exploratory consulting. Sounds like a fancy way of saying, I'm going to get paid to browse Wikipedia. How do you actually prove value to a client if you have no deliverables?
You prove it through the delta of surprise. If you tell them something their internal team, who are all following the best practices, didn't know, that's your value. If you can connect their supply chain problem to a piece of obscure 19th century maritime law you found while wasting time, you've just saved them millions. You aren't being paid for your time, you're being paid for the weirdness of your inputs.
That takes a lot of guts. But it's true. The things we are bad at are often just indicators of where our cognitive diversity lies. If you're bad at following instructions, maybe you're good at finding the flaws in the instructions. There's a case study of a developer who couldn't stop refactoring code. He was slow at shipping features because he was obsessed with making the underlying structure perfect.
He was probably a nightmare for his manager.
He was. So he stopped trying to ship features and started a code debt audit firm. He gets paid more now to tell people why their code is messy than he ever did as an engineer. He amplified his error, his obsessive refactoring, until it became his primary value proposition. He stopped being a bad employee and became a world-class specialist.
I love that. I'm not lazy. I'm a high-efficiency energy conservation specialist. It's all about the framing.
Idea number 7, the social graph inversion. This is about your network. Most people spend their time strengthening strong ties, their close friends and colleagues who think just like them.
But the strength of weak ties theory tells us that innovation comes from the fringes. A contrarian should systematically engage with the weakest connections in their network.
The "I haven't talked to this person in 5 years" folder?
Yes. Or the person who is the most different from you. If you're a conservative tech enthusiast in 2026, go talk to a traditionalist organic farmer in the Midwest, or a vinyl shop owner in a different country. Map your social graph and look for the islands, the people who aren't connected to anyone else you know.
Why is that so important? Why not just stay with the people who get you?
Because those islands are information oracles. They have access to data and perspectives that your echo chamber, even a contrarian echo chamber, can't see. It's about information diversity. If everyone you know is reading the same Substack and listening to the same podcasts, you are all becoming the same person. You're all processing the same inputs and coming to the same contrarian conclusions.
But how do you actually start those conversations without it being awkward? "Hi, we haven't spoken in a decade. Tell me something weird."
Actually, yes. People love being asked for their unique perspective. You say, I'm trying to break out of my intellectual bubble, and you are the person in my network whose life is the most different from mine. What is the one thing about your industry or lifestyle that outsiders completely misunderstand? It's a magic question. It bypasses small talk and goes straight to the divergent data.
It's a literal anti-algorithm move. The internet wants to cluster you with people like you. Inverting your social graph is a manual override. It's uncomfortable, it's inefficient, but it's where the aha moments live. It's the interdisciplinary arbitrage. You take an idea from the goat farmer and apply it to a software startup. That's how you get something truly new.
I should probably call that guy who tried to sell me a subscription-based goat rental service 3 years ago. He was definitely on a different wavelength. I thought he was crazy then, but maybe he was just 3 years ahead of the unsexy business trend.
Maybe start with something a bit more productive than goat rentals. But the principle holds. Diversity of input leads to divergence of output. If you want to think differently, you have to talk to different people.
Right? Idea number 8, the meta-contrarian position. This is my favorite because it's so annoying. It's taking a contrarian position on contrarian ideas themselves.
It's contrarianism squared. Right now, in the tech world, the contrarian take is often AI is overhyped, or we need to return to physical hardware. It's become a new orthodoxy.
So the meta-contrarian says, what? AI is actually underhyped, but for all the wrong reasons.
Or, the return to physical hardware is actually just a new form of digital escapism. It's about looking at the counterculture and realizing that it has its own dogmas and blind spots. If everyone in your weird group thinks the same way about the mainstream, you've just created a smaller, weirder mainstream. You're still following a script. It's just a different script.
Does that mean you're just constantly disagreeing? Isn't that just being a contrarian for sport?
It's about intellectual hygiene. If you find yourself agreeing with your rebel group too often, your brain is getting soft. The meta-contrarian position is a way to test the strength of your own fringe beliefs. If you can't argue against your own contrarianism, you don't own the idea. The idea owns you. It's about maintaining cognitive independence, even from the people who agree with you.
It's the entropy budget, which we've talked about before. You have to keep injecting zaniness into your own thinking so you don't become a caricature of a contrarian. If you find yourself saying, well, actually, more than 3 times a day, you might need to take a meta-contrarian break and actually agree with someone for once.
It helps you avoid the professional dissent trap. You don't want to be the guy who is wrong, just to be right. You want to be the guy who sees the third path that neither the normies nor the rebels have noticed. It's about being truly off-center. It's a lonely place, but the view is better.
How do you know if you've gone too far into meta-contrarianism?
When you start disagreeing with yourself just to keep it interesting, that's when you need a nap. But seriously, it's a check against intellectual ego. It reminds you that no group, no matter how fringe, has a monopoly on the truth.
Idea number 9, the ambiguity engine. This is about building systems that thrive on ambiguity while others seek clarity.
We are obsessed with clarity in 2026. We want dashboards, KPIs, and North Star metrics. We want the world to be a series of neat little boxes, but the most interesting opportunities are inherently ambiguous. They don't have a metric yet. If you can measure it perfectly, the opportunity is probably already gone.
So, an ambiguity engine is a decision-making framework that intentionally preserves multiple contradictory paths forward.
Yes. Instead of narrowing down your options through a funnel, you build a system that allows you to pursue 3 different conflicting strategies simultaneously for as long as possible. You treat your life or your business like a quantum superposition. You are both a software dev and a carpenter until the market forces you to collapse into one.
That sounds expensive and confusing, Corn Poppleberry. My sloth brain wants to pick one branch and nap on it. How do you manage the split focus without burning out?
You have to change your view of focus. Focus isn't just looking at one thing, it's looking at one ecosystem. If your carpentry informs your software design, maybe through an understanding of physical joinery that leads to better API structures, then you aren't split. You're cross-pollinating. The ambiguity engine is about resisting the urge to specialize until the very last second. It's optionality as an asset.
It's like the briefing gateway idea, creating a layer of middleware for your life that can handle any input without breaking the core system. You're not confused, you're multimodal.
I like that. Multimodal living. It allows you to be a relationship architect one day and a microfactory operator the next, without feeling like you have a split personality. You're just maintaining a broad surface area for luck to hit. Clarity is a comfort, but ambiguity is a competitive advantage.
I think I need an ambiguity engine for my lunch choices. I can never decide between a sandwich and a salad. Now, idea number 10, the legacy protocol. We touched on this earlier, but I want to go deeper. This is about designing everything you create to be useful 50 years from now.
This is the ultimate contrarian play in a disposable culture. Think about the hardware we use. In 2026, most of it is designed to be obsolete in 3 years. It's planned e-waste. A legacy protocol thinker builds legacy tech, customizing a 2024-era laptop with a mechanical keyboard and a screen that can be repaired with a screwdriver, then running an operating system that doesn't require a cloud connection.
It's aggressive reality. You are reclaiming ownership from the SaaS lords. But it's not just tech, it's also legacy content. Writing a book that doesn't reference current memes or the latest political drama. Building a third space like a library laundromat that will still be a community hub in 2076 because it's built on fundamental human needs, not a trend.
What are the fundamental human needs that a legacy protocol should target? If we're building for 50 years, what stays the same?
Privacy, physical touch, local community, and analog reliability. Think about the vinyl revival. It wasn't just about the sound, it was about having a physical object that wouldn't disappear if a server went down. If you build a business that relies on local mesh networks instead of the global cloud, you are building a legacy protocol. You are creating a digital bunker that will still be functional when the current tech giants have been replaced by whatever comes next.
It changes your success metric. You're not looking for virality or likes, you're looking for durability. If you create something that someone finds in an attic in 50 years and it still works, physically or intellectually, you've won. It's the difference between a TikTok video and a leather-bound journal.
It's a counterculture of sincerity. It's saying, I care about this enough to make it last. In an age of deepfakes and ephemeral AI-generated slop, durability is a radical statement of human agency. It's a way of saying, I was here, and I made something that didn't dissolve the moment the power went out.
And it's a massive business opportunity. As Main Street millionaires take over those unsexy businesses, the plumbing companies, the tool and die shops, the local bakeries, The ones that focus on legacy protocols, quality, durability, and deep human connection will be the ones that survive the next 25 years. While the tech disruptors are burning through VC cash, the legacy protocol businesses are quietly compounding.
Okay, that's 10. My brain is officially divergent. But we can't just leave people with a list. We need to tell them what to actually do with this. Because knowledge without implementation is just entertainment, and we are a very serious podcast for serious eccentrics.
Serious eccentrics is an oxymoron, but I'll take it. Here is the first actionable takeaway. Pick one idea from this list, just one, and run a 72-hour micro-experiment. Don't try to change your whole life, just change your weekend.
For example, give them a starting line.
If you pick constraint amplification, try to do your entire job tomorrow using only your phone. Or better yet, try to do it without using any AI tools for 24 hours. See where your brain has become lazy. If you pick social graph inversion, reach out to the person in your LinkedIn feed who makes you the most uncomfortable, the one whose opinions you usually roll your eyes at, and ask them for a 15-minute Zoom call to learn about their worldview. Don't argue, just listen.
And document the friction points. This is key. Don't just do it. Watch yourself doing it. Where does it hurt? Where do you feel the urge to fit in or be efficient? That hurt is the feeling of your median user brain fighting against a contrarian framework. That's where the growth is. That friction is the sound of a new neural pathway being paved.
Actionable insight number 2. Create a contrarian dashboard. Most people track their bank account or their step count. Start tracking metrics that mainstream advice tells you to ignore.
Like, time spent confused?
Yes, or number of abandoned paths. If you aren't abandoning at least 3 ideas a week, you aren't exploring a wide enough search space. You're playing it too safe. Or track minutes spent in intentional friction. If your day was too seamless, you probably didn't do anything original. You just followed the grooves in the road.
I love the boredom metric. Did I stare at a wall for 20 minutes today without checking my phone? If the answer is no, I failed my productivity goal. It's a complete inversion of how we usually think about getting things done.
Well, yes. And finally, actionable insight number 3. Find one other weird thinker, a relationship architect for your soul, and run a 30-minute idea inversion session.
This is where you systematically try to sabotage each other's current projects.
In a productive way. You take their best idea and you invert it. You look for the opposite infrastructure. If they say I'm building a high-speed trading algorithm, you ask, what if you built a low-speed, high-conviction manual trading journal instead? What value would that create? You're looking for the white space they might be missing because they are too close to the problem.
It's like a devil's advocate session, but with more high divergence thinking. It's about helping each other see the adjacent possible, the white space that the normies haven't even noticed. It's about being each other's ambiguity engine.
That's the goal. In 2026, the crowded space is AI efficiency. Everyone is trying to do the same things 5% faster. The empty space is physical ownership, radical human connection, and these niche eccentric subcultures. The value of contrarian thinking is compounding exponentially right now because the average is becoming a commodity.
Because as the median becomes free, the outlier becomes priceless. If an AI can do it, it's worth 0. If only a weird, obsessed human can do it, it's worth everything.
That's a great way to put it. We are moving from an era of optimization to an era of differentiation. The weird are finally inheriting the earth, or at least the profitable corners of it.
Well, I'm going to go differentiate myself by taking a nap while staring at a wall. It's for my boredom metric, corn. It's very important work. I might even meet a sandwich I want to get to know better.
I don't doubt it for a second. This has been a fascinating deep dive. I hope people actually try these. Even the goat rental. 1. There's probably a huge market for rental goats for lawn maintenance in 2026.
Especially the goat rental one. I still have that guy's number. I'll put it in the show notes if he's still in business.
Please don't. Anyway, let's wrap this up. What's the most valuable contrarian idea you've seen that nobody else is talking about? What's your semantic drift for 2026? Email us at show@myweirdprompts.com. We genuinely want to hear the weird stuff. We want the ideas that make people uncomfortable.
And next week, we're actually going to take one of these 10 ideas. I'm thinking the opposite infrastructure play, and we're going to try to build it live in 60 minutes. Or at least, we'll talk through the blueprint of what a friction-first startup looks like. It's going to be a disaster or a masterpiece. Join us for the wreckage.
Big thanks to our producer, Hilbert Flemingtop, for keeping the ambiguity engine running behind the scenes and making sure we don't drift too far into total nonsense.
And a huge shout out to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show and our agentic AI experiments. They help us stay on the edge without falling off.
This has been my Weird Prompts. If you're enjoying the show, a quick review on your podcast app, especially if it's a contrarian review that disagrees with everything we said, helps us reach new listeners. We love a good one-star review that makes a valid philosophical point.
Find us at myweirdprompts.com for the RSS feed and all the ways to subscribe. We're also on Telegram if you want to get notified when the next weird drop happens. We promise to keep it interesting.
Well, stay weird, everyone. Don't let the algorithm smooth out your edges.
See ya. I'm off to find that goat guy.
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash, text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My Weird Prompts, that's the flows from sloth